For years, Killington has been a go-to resort for East Coast skiers and riders. Size, snow quality, and terrain diversity make this mountain incredibly appealing to anyone within driving distance. But while it's nicknamed the Beast of the East, is it the right mountain for you? In this video, we'll go through Killington's overall mountain experience, and then we'll go through how the resort stacks up in our overall rankings. If you find this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe to help us grow, and be sure to hit the bell so you don't miss any of our content. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, feel free to make them in the comments below. Killington offers competitive East Coast snow quality. With elevations of up to 4,241 feet in diverse terrain, the resort sees decent natural snow accumulation each season. There's often enough snow for trails and glades to fill in naturally, but like most Vermont resorts, these tend to have thin cover. In recent years, Killington has come ahead as the king of snowmaking in Vermont. The resort produces generous artificial accumulation on trails for all ability levels. Trails with early and mid-season snowmaking, like Superstar, allow the resort to extend its season for several extra weeks in the spring. In recent years, Killington has modernized their snowmaking equipment to produce artificial snow on trails more directly and efficiently. Even in typical snow years, the resort often stays open through late May with a select few trail offerings. Like at all Vermont resorts, the conditions at Killington can vary. Trails can sometimes get icy or lose sufficient snow cover. Many of them remain closed for significant lengths of time, and in some cases, conditions can change very abruptly. The mountain occasionally lacks sufficient conditions to ski anything that's ungroomed, and the bumps that already exist can turn into chunks of ice. From bunny hills to steep chutes, Killington offers a wide variety of terrain that should suit typical guests quite well. The well-thought-out Snowshed and Ram's Head beginner areas offer a range of designated beginner terrain, including terrain parks and glades, for kids and adults who are just starting. Ram's Head also offers some easier blues and has turned into more of a freestyle area in recent years. These areas are very removed from the rest of the resort and provide welcome isolation for more aggressive skiers elsewhere. There are also a handful of green runs in mid-mountain areas. Intermediates will find groomed blue cruisers across all major mountain areas. Visitors of this ability level will appreciate the abundance of peak-to-base blue cruisers, some of which provide some of the most amazing views you'll get anywhere in Vermont. Some of Killington's upper mountain blues, most notably Great Northern and some short trails off the top of Snowdon, used to be greens and are good progression trails for lower intermediates. On the other hand, a couple of blues are on the steeper side and are better for advanced intermediates. If you haven't been to Killington before, use your best judgment when attempting these blue runs. Some blue runs remain ungroomed at times, but this is exceedingly rare and they're always marked with advanced or expert gates. There are also a couple of intermediate glade areas off Ram's Head. For advanced and expert visitors, Killington offers a range of both groomed and ungroomed black and double black diamond runs. These runs are quite steep, although some double blacks are on the easier side and would likely be classified as single blacks at other resorts. Experienced guests will find plenty of challenging mogul and tree runs along Bear Mountain, Sky Peak, and Killington Peak, with trails such as Outer Limits and Ovation offering some of the steepest drops in the east. The Catwalk Trail requires walking up a set of stairs and a short hike, but if you're an expert, you're okay navigating some classic New England rocks and ice, and you want access to one of Killington's only true narrow steeps, the effort is well worth it. Killington offers some very demanding trees, and there are even a few cliffs if you know where to look. However, if you want to ski a long mogul route, there are better places out there. A lot of expert terrain is fairly short and often only makes up part of a path down the mountain. Killington has always been a leader when it comes to freestyle terrain, and the resort has further improved the experience in recent years thanks to its partnership with Woodward that added multiple progression parks. Features range from small to large, including unique natural features in the stash area. Killington has historically also been known for an 18-foot halfpipe on its Dreammaker Trail. That being said, it never came to fruition this year. Although it boasts the longest vertical drop in the east, Killington does have 6 heavily developed base areas at varying elevations throughout the resort. As a result, you can directly access every mountain peak from at least one base area. While lots of people will like the convenience of this setup, guests expecting a true 3,000-foot vertical drop across key mountain zones may be disappointed. In fact, the only way to do the full 3,000-foot vertical drop is to take one of the few very low elevation trails down to the skyship base, parts of which are very flat. The resort offers beautiful views of surrounding scenery, but the lift, lodge, and base buildup means it's tough to find isolation in high elevation terrain. The only places you'll feel truly isolated here are at the top of the hike-only catwalk trail, or a bit further up the path to the top of Killington Peak, which is not directly skiable but is accessible by foot. Once you make it up to this area, you'll have nobody else around you paired with breathtaking views of the surrounding mountaintops. Killington gets cold throughout the season, but luckily, there are a number of places to stop in for a break. All 6 bases host large lodges with food and drink options. Not quite as much exists mid-mountain, but there are a couple of very solid food joints, including a Jamaican grill at the Skyship Mid-Station. The fancy and expensive Summit Lodge at Killington Peak offers amazing views. However, it gets uncomfortably crowded during peak times and makes the top of the resort feel commercialized. For the upcoming season, the K1 Base Lodge is getting completely rebuilt, and the existing structure will be torn down. Killington is not for those who want a mountain that's simple to get around. It's possible to get pretty much anywhere at the resort from the top, but ending up in the wrong place is way too easy given the nature of there being 6 bases. Signage is fairly well maintained throughout the mountain, including large trail maps at key locations, but it could be better designed. While signs generally have directions to each of the bases, they don't have any lift directions, making it really unclear how to find some mid-mountain lifts. A major Killington downside is that getting between certain mountain areas requires multiple lift rides or a few minutes of catwalking. If you're going from anywhere on the Sky Peak side to the Killington Peak side and you're not an expert, catwalking is essentially unavoidable. There are some flat parts in certain mountain areas, and it takes a bit of a learning curve to figure out how to avoid them. Snowshed and Ram's Head's isolation deflects aggressive skier traffic, but makes it very difficult for guests to navigate their way in or out. Unless you know what you're doing, it's way too easy to end up on a flat trail in either direction. Getting between the two areas themselves is made easier by a bidirectional ski tunnel, but that itself is also pretty flat, with some mild uphill sections in both directions. But getting around Killington isn't all bad. The resort installed 4 ski tunnels at busy trail intersections in recent seasons, and these tunnels have improved the overall resort experience by mitigating collision risk and keeping skiers of different ability levels separated. However, they've also eliminated a few useful trail intersections. Killington boasts impressive lift infrastructure. Guests can access all major mountain areas through one or more high-speed lifts, although many helper lifts and some chairs serving minor areas are fixed grip. The 2 gondolas and recently added bubble chair provide welcome isolation from the elements. A couple of seasons ago, Killington made 2 major lift improvements. First, they replaced the old Snowdon Quad with the Snowdon 6 bubble chair, giving Snowdon Mountain high-speed lift service for the first time. Second, they installed the South Ridge Quad, restoring direct lift service to this part of the mountain after a several-year absence. Previously, guests would have to ski all the way down to the Bear Mountain base and take 2 indirect lifts just to lap this terrain. But Killington's lift setup still has some downsides. Many bases have only one major lift out, which leads to long lines. Multiple lifts at the K1 base are a catwalk's distance away from each other. The popular Killington Peak Lodge is only accessible by the K1 gondola, making that lift especially bad on busy weekends and holidays. Many alternatives to main lifts are slow, very exposed to wind, or inaccessible from the base, making them undesirable. This past season, the resort introduced the Fast Tracks program, which allows guests to pay a premium to skip the lines at many popular lifts. Crowds on some key runs can get pretty heavy too. Sometimes, the biggest obstacles are the other people on the trail. Killington is right in the middle of Vermont, and it's about a 3-hour drive from Boston and 5 hours from New York City. While they're not the most convenient in the world, there are actually some public transportation options, unlike many competitors. Visitors can hop on an Amtrak from New York, or bus service from several regional cities to get to Rutland, where there's hourly buses to Killington. Killington offers extensive lodging options in town, but very few slopeside hotels. Privately owned condos along Skyship and Sunrise are far from town, but they're typically your best bet for ski in, ski out accommodations, although the trails along them may not be open earlier in the season. It's worth noting that a free shuttle bus service to the mountain does serve most lodging options in town. Killington asks a fairly high ticket price for Vermont and has a few logistical issues, but you won't find anything else like it on the East Coast. While it's no match for the major resorts out west, nobody in Vermont can beat Killington in size, and few can compete in snowmaking. On top of that, the infrastructure upgrades made in recent years have had significant impacts on Killington's lift and crowd flow experiences. If you're looking for a mountain in Vermont that offers something for everyone, it's hard to find a better place than Killington. Now let's go through how Killington stacks up in our overall rankings, which are determined by the following 10-category mountain score. Killington's accumulation totals aren't anything insane, but they're strong for the East Coast, and the resort gets a 6 for snow. Same with Resiliency. Conditions won't be good all the time, but the snowmaking and grooming operations are hard to beat in Vermont, and the resort gets a 7 in this category. Killington is the largest ski resort east of the Mississippi, measuring in at just over 1,500 skiable acres and over 2,500 acres from boundary to boundary, and gets a 6 for size. Killington offers plenty for beginners, intermediates, and advanced visitors, and gets a 7 for terrain diversity. Steep and ungroomed trails can be found across Killington's footprint, but northern Vermont rivals offer tougher trails, and the resort gets a 6 for challenge. Almost all of Killington's footprint can be accessed through high-speed chairs or gondolas, and the resort gets an 8 for lifts. Killington gets really crowded at peak times and has some annoying choke points, but the situation has improved in recent years, and the resort gets a 5 for crowd flow. Facilities are widespread but lacking in some ways in mid and upper mountain areas, and the resort gets a 7 in this category. Signs are good enough, but Killington is an easy mountain to get lost at, and the resort gets a 4 for navigation. And finally, mountain aesthetic. Killington offers a footprint that feels both distinctive and commercialized, and gets a 5 in this category. These categories add up to an overall mountain score of 61 as of June 2022, placing Killington first in Vermont and 39th overall. The resort does not have the snow quality, extremes, or isolation to compete with the destination Rockies Mountains, but its size, snowmaking, and terrain diversity allow it to edge out East Coast giants like Tremblant, Stowe, and Sugarbush. Killington also scores similarly to some Pacific Northwest mountains in Washington State and Oregon. For more information on Killington and over 50 other North American ski resorts, check out peakrankings.com.